Hi, my name is Shannon Murphy and I'm the director of Babyteeth. About 2 years ago, Alex White, the producer, and Jan Chapman, the executive producer, brought Babyteeth to me, and when I first read it, I was incredibly moved by the story, but also just so intrigued by the different dynamics between the family members and also the people outside the main core family who infiltrate into their lives. And I thought the tone of the piece was very unique and challenging, and so I wanted to take on that challenge. I really wanted to be involved in Babyteeth because I'd always known about Rita Carnier and her theatre work, because I began my career in the theatre world as well. And I was always really drawn to Rita actually also as a performer as well as her writing. And it's really hard to say no to doing your first feature film with Jan Chapman, because she produced so many of my favourite Australian films, such as Love Serenade or Lantana or The Piano. In fact, the first time I met Jan, I walked into her office and Alex said, "Oh, this is the piano from The Piano." And I was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna vomit." But it was a no-brainer for my first film, really. Some of the big questions we were discussing were, I guess, the style of the work, how I wanted to shoot it, why I wanted to make those choices. She talked about her favourite films, I talked about mine, and it was also a lot about the ensemble nature of this story. So often with film you have a protagonist, you go on a journey with them, and this one is quite different in that sense, in that there are a lot of other people whose stories we follow. And yes, it does orbit around Miller and her journey, but it's most certainly also Henry and Anna and Moses' story as well. I would describe Babyteeth as an eccentric family drama that at its core is about a wonderful young woman called Miller who is falling in love for the first time. Miller is someone who, because she's 15, she's at that incredible place in her life where she's feeling everything on like another level. She's operating at a higher frequency, and she's got very strong ideas about the world. And because Miller is also at a place where she's found out that she's unwell, she's wanting to accelerate her life very quickly. And when she first meets Moses on platform 3 at the train station, she knows instantly that he's someone who's going to be a great distraction from her, and also someone that's going to challenge her parents and what they allow her to do. And she's really up for that and wanting to push boundaries in an extreme way very quickly. Moses is an incredibly charming, infectious polysubstance abuser. So for a young man, he's spending a lot of time taking a lot of different drugs, and he's running away from his family and trying very much to insert himself into another family, because essentially he does want to belong somewhere. And he's quite captivated by Miller's family, because on the outside they seem quite pleasant and normal, but there is as much dysfunction in their family as there is in his. And I think he finds comfort in that, but also feels drawn to Miller. Henry is Miller's father, and he's a psychiatrist. He is someone who's very intellectual, but also able to often help other people with their dilemmas and prescribe medication. And for once in his life, he's really quite stuck and having to go into his own shell, really, because he doesn't know how to cope with how his family are responding to Miller's illness. He prescribes medication to his wife Anna, and this creates a very difficult kind of relationship between husband and wife. And he's also looking for a lot of distractions, and he does that in quite entertaining and sometimes tragic ways. Anna's Miller's mother, and she's a very complicated woman because she has a lot of discord within her. The two sides of herself have always been battling each other. One is the mother and one is the artist. And she gave up her concert playing as a pianist for Miller and to raise Miller. And it's something that this loss of her dream is something that the entire family feels, because she's very much sort of the nervous system of the family, and when she is unhappy or feeling joy, either way, everyone feels it with her. And so that's both energizing but also quite suffocating as a teenage girl. And because they are a family of only 3, that's a very powerful relationship, but it's also a place where when you're trying to assert yourself in the world, there's a lot of power dynamics that are shifting, and even though there's a lot of love, there's also a lot of rebellion and authority that goes with that. So they're all of their hearts are breaking a little bit with Miller's rapid changing behaviour, really. Miller and Moses meet completely by accident at a train station, and she very quickly assesses the situation and decides, this is the guy for me. This is the man who is going to be able to shift where I am in my life. She's feeling very trapped, and to give me the things that I'm going to need and be bold enough and daring enough to do that without letting the fact that I have an illness get in the way. And she also, I mean, really, Moses is the kind of guy that I think most 15-year-olds are going to be into. I would have been, I kind of still am. Like, you want the bad guy who is intriguing, almost impossible to catch. They're so electric and you feel so alive that you kind of excuse all their neglect and other parts of them that frustrate you so much. But she knows that when he's in front of her, she's having an experience that she's never had before. And that's what's pretty wonderful about their relationship. Eliza Scanlon is a complete joy to work with. She is so extraordinary for someone her age, and what I love and what she really offered to the role of Miller is her bravery. She's so bold, completely out of the box with her choices, and is also very smart and analytical, but yet she allows herself to be very loose on set too. And this was a huge role for her because she's done some amazing projects, as we all know, with Sharp Objects and Little Women, but this is the first time she's playing a lead in an Australian film, and so she really took that so seriously and worked so hard with me during the rehearsal period, and was brave enough to shave all her hair off and has absolutely no vanity, and I just love that about her. I'd watched Toby Wallace in Romper Stomper, the TV show, and my husband had been in that TV show with him, and he said straight away, this is the guy for your film. And about 6 months or so passed, and I had Toby come in for an audition. At his core, Moses is a really generous person and is warm and charming. And I'd seen the dangerous side of Toby in Romper Stomper, and I wanted to see another more vulnerable side to him, and he gave it in spades in the audition. And he's an incredibly raw performer. He's very intuitive, and he never stops playing, so you can really keep shifting the performance non-stop, really. Miller's family dynamic has always been incredibly solid up until this point in the film. She's a single child, so that's a very powerful relationship that you have with your parents. It's very intense, but at the same time, because of where she's at, she's starting to rebel and have issues with their authority, and that's causing a lot of heartbreak with her parents. At the same time, Miller has always been the adult in a way in the family. She's wise beyond her years, and she's starting to get frustrated with that. And now that she's having to face being incredibly sick, she wants more, and she wants them to step up. And if they won't, she's just going to start living her life exactly as she wants. And that's what she's, without saying it, asking for at this stage in the story. Ben Mendelsohn is a tornado of a man on set in the most wonderful way. He comes on and swirls you up in his energy, and it's very exciting to be around. Having said that, he's the most incredible master of channeling stillness, which was something that the character of Henry does a lot of. And the reason why I was so fascinated to see Ben in this role was because often he's known in the US as playing villains and very sort of dark horse kind of characters. But in Australia, we know that there's also a very comedic side to him. And I knew that tonally, every actor that I picked for this project had to be able to really understand comedy and drama at the same time. And he's extraordinary at that. And his physical comedy is also something that I think a lot of people don't know about, that he's extraordinary at. And his camera technique as well is incredibly astute. He's like got forensic precision when it comes to how to move in front of a camera. And yeah, he's a delight to work with. Essie, I always felt was the perfect person to play Anna. As I mentioned, Anna has a divided heart, so she's both artist and mother, and she's in conflict with these ideas, giving one up for the other. And Essie's got 2 daughters herself. She understands this juggle, and she's also one of our country's greatest actresses of her generation. And I've always wanted to work with her, and I knew that the complexity that she brings and the incredible intelligence that she has were going to be what we needed for Anna, as well as an extraordinary emotional depth. Bittersweet is always used to describe stories, and I always wonder what it is about that, and I think it must be the fact that there's a yin and yang element to a story, and so in this it is bittersweet in that every moment is in opposition with itself. And ways that we explored that, for example, were the costume design is very vibrant, and in order to juxtapose that, we used Baltar lenses, and what they offer is a moodiness, and that in juxtaposition to the bright colours of the wardrobe are something that's battling itself. And because there is incredible humour in this story and also a darkness to it as well, we always wanted both of those elements to be operating in the frame at the same time. And we did that with a lot of different elements of the film. Anna is a concert pianist, and Miller is a violinist, and they have been in a duet with each other pretty much their whole life, and that's how they've always communicated if they haven't been able to use words. Music is very meaningful in this family. They listen to a lot of it. It has been something that they have enjoyed throughout Miller's life. In terms of how we use music in the film as well, is that it's very much connected to the love story. Usually the love story of Miller and Moses, but sometimes the love story of Anna and Miller as well. And it's very much driven by Miller's emotions and where she's at in the story, and it's often very strong and loud, and then can sometimes move into diegetic, or it starts as diegetic and moves into score. We were very fortunate with the locations because we found this beautiful mid-century house very early on, which we decided would be the Finlay house. And What I loved about this house is that it had a glass courtyard, which was very much prominent in most of the shots in the house. It's impossible to get away from the glass. And we talked a lot about how Miller feels like a bird trapped in this atrium. And even though inside it feels warm and inviting and a place that you'd want to be, she's just busting to get out of this space. So I talked a lot with our designer, Cherie Phillips, about creating a party that was more of an art school party where no matter what room you walked into, you weren't quite sure what to expect. And in my theatre life, I used to work a lot in performance art and direct performance artists in work, and so we have this interaction with Miller and this performance artist on this night out, which is transformative for her. For me, it was essential that Eliza shaved her head for this role. Eliza really felt the same way. She also felt strongly that it was essential in order for her to be able to feel what Miller was feeling to be able to lose her hair and to shed that part of herself that so many of us hold on to, and to understand what that means to see yourself so drastically changed. I really hope that when people leave the cinema after watching Babyteeth, that they feel like they have had a visceral experience and that they haven't just watched a really strong piece of storytelling, but that that it's in their bones and that it allows them to leave and see their life differently in some way. I think that's always the great goal of making art, that you want it to affect people beyond just the time that you have them sitting there.
I had an open commission from Belvoir Theatre in Sydney, and I think that with plays, it's like you explore a question. Well, for me, that's what it is. And one that you're probably not likely to answer, but something that's going to kind of excite you. And so my question at the time was, how do you love like you've got nothing to lose? And this play sort of came out of that, and then it was lucky that it was such a big question because it just went on and on. I'd always had images when I was writing it as a play that were quite filmic for the characters, so it was a pleasure to adapt it. On the opening night of Babyteeth at Belvoir, I met with Jan Chapman and Alex White. They thought that it would make a good film, and so I met up with them and we talked about it and sort of played with different ideas, and then over the years it became sort of big and lots of plots, and then it sort of slowly came back to just quite an intimate study of these characters. Well, what I say is it's a family drama that's funny until it's really not funny. It's about a girl who meets a guy and he kind of gets involved with her family. At every step, it looks like everyone's making the worst possible decisions, but it's the perfect thing. It's like pure grace for this family. Miller is a girl who's sort of willing herself to grow up. She's really smart. She's really brave. She's very independent, and she's at that really interesting age where you need your parents, but you do not want your parents around, and everything's very accelerated for her. She knows that she could either live very politely at this point, or she can spend her time doing exactly what she wants, and that's what she does. Moses is a really sensitive guy who can't cope with the world in a head-on way. He's very adorable. Like, I think it's hard not to love him. He wants to be part of a family, and he kind of wants to take care of people, but he feels so lost at this point. You know he's going to be okay, but where the film starts, he's spinning out of control. I really love Henry. I think he's a really practical person. I think he's practical according to his logic of what will keep him in control and keep his daughter safe and happy, and he's beautiful. I don't know what to say about him. I really, really like him. I think he makes some crazy decisions, but he's really doing his best, this guy. I'm really into him. I love Anna. She's Miller's mother. She's a total fierce artist who I think her nature is very fierce, and in that way she's a lot like Miller. And she's not she's emotional, and in other circumstances she would be living a huge life, a huge explosive life, but because she's taking care of her sick daughter, she's trying to get it right. She's tempering everything down, and it's making her feel like she's crazy, but she's a very electrifying person, I think, who is driving herself crazy. The Finlay family are holding on very tight at the start of the film. I would say they're functioning, but there's so much struggle there. They've got a very active sense of humour within the family, which is keeping them kind of up. Yeah, it's a crisis point. Miller at the start of the film she's at a crossroads. She could either play along and be kind of a girl going through treatment and be kind of appropriate in that, or she could get the life experiences that she wants and sort of open up to the world and seize it and grab it and hold it really tight, and that's what she does. She's making the decision to do things on her own terms and opening her heart in a really very wild way. Miller and Moses meet on a train platform. He seems to have a death wish. She's in a position where she feels kind of poised between life and death herself. There's something irresistible between them. She notices he has a haircut, which is self-done, and asks him to give her one. She gets a blood nose, and he sort of saves her life in sort of his own way. That's how they meet. She asks him to give him a haircut on a train platform. The way that their relationship progresses, they keep changing each other's lives. Miller demands a level of honesty from him that he's just not used to giving, and a level of vulnerability that is really, it's very uncomfortable for him. and he offers her experiences that are out of reach from where she's been before. They just keep on changing what's possible for each other. He's not scared of her. He's not scared of her intensity. He's not scared of the fact that she's sick. All of that, which is probably how she's been defined, it's irrelevant in the face of what their connection is. Miller is much closer to Henry at this point in her life than she is to Anna. I think Anna does a lot of the caring, has seen her through a lot of rounds of treatment, and is really kind of anxious. And Henry has sort of, though he's very present, he's also sort of taken a step back. He has work to go to. Anna is sort of there all the time. It's a very normal kind of teenage relationship with parents because there's so much tension from the fact that Miller's sick, and also Miller is a violinist and her mother is a pianist who's given it up to take care of Miller. They're very close though as a family. There's so much intelligence between them, and there's so much humour in how they relate to each other. Eliza is very smart and very funny, just so outrageously talented as well. But she's got an intensity which is, it's really shocking. She really makes Miller somebody who's really strong. She's also, I think that she has quite a punk presence on screen, which is like, oh my God, amazing. I think people are really funny when they're going through a lot. If you're going through a lot over a long period of time, your sense of humour is really the thing that gets you through, and your shared sense of humour with the people who you're going through it with. It's just so important. So I don't think it's necessarily a funny film. I think that they, as people, have very strong senses of humour, and there's heat in how they love each other as well, and how messy they are, and how they're just trying so hard to get it right. I mean, you have to love them, even though they do some things that are really kind of crazy. I hope that people walk out feeling their hearts opened to these people and to the story, and I hope they call the people they love and love more, feel more, look at the world. I don't know. I hope it makes people happy and feel deeply.
I'm Essie Davis and I'm playing Anna in Babyteeth. I bawled my eyes out reading it, and it was to come back to Australia at a time where I couldn't, and I was like, I would love to do this but I can't commit to it. And then it went on in the raising finance land, and then Shannon came back to me a couple of years ago and went, so I still would like you to do this. And I read it again and bawled my eyes out again, and it's just one of those incredibly beautifully written, devastating scripts that how could you possibly say no to it? It's such a beautiful, funny, awkward, strange story that's just heart-wrenchingly sad. It's just, yeah, what a beautiful, unsentimental, heartwarming, heartbreaking story. Well, Anna is a concert pianist who has sort of stopped her career for her child, and her daughter Mila is 15, and 5 years ago she was diagnosed with cancer and had all of the treatment and was in remission for 5 years, and now it's come back. Anna has sort of decides to give up playing the piano at all in the hope that sacrifice will save her child. So Anna is married to Henry, who is a psychiatrist and who is beautifully played by the beautiful Ben Mendelsohn, who's very present and genuine and lovely to work with. And Henry is a prescriber of drugs, and so through most of the film, all four characters are taking some drugs of some kind, and he has medicated his wife with various antidepressants and stabilizers and things to make her not feel so profoundly, and himself as well. And their daughter is on anti-cancer drug treatment, and then she falls in love with a skanky old young drug addict who both Henry and Anna do not approve of. And it's their daughter's first love, and they don't really want her to be falling in love with such a sleazebag thief drug addict. But in a way, it's a story about hypocrisy and sobriety and being present, and through the journey of the film, everyone becomes sober. They're a very close family. Mila's an only child, and I think as in the research that we did, a lot of parents whose children have been diagnosed with cancer, who then get it back when they are older, teenagers, the parent will often treat their teenager as if they were the age they were when they were first diagnosed, so 6 or 10, but they're dealing with a teenager who is trying to rebel against helicopter parenting or just, you know, break out and be independent and individual and feel like a grown-up. And that's really hard, particularly for Anna, to handle, because she just wants to be with her daughter all the time and protect her from everything and try and make her better. And Mila loves her parents, but is falling in love and sort of overwhelmed by those feelings of that newness and the dangerous nature of the boy she's fallen in love with. And even though Anna and Henry are quite liberal-minded and open to meeting this man who she brings home, that they're also very cautious and terrified of what he's doing. With the nature of this script and the fact that it is a story that involves someone having cancer and being terminally ill, is that it would be very easy to play with a lot of sentiment and sentimentality, and what I love about Eliza's performance is the simplicity with which she can. I saw her test actually, and the simplicity with which she could look up at the sky through the camera and go, oh, I'm looking forward to being a part of that. It was so simple and not deeply laden with the subtext, because you hear the subtext, it's written, and it's so, yeah, I think that, she looks like a little girl, and she's, even though her character gets into makeup at some point, she's not all made up, she's just, she looks like she could be Ben and my daughter, and it's a very honest and simple performance, and I think that that's beautiful. Ben, I mean, he has a wealth of experience both as an actor and in life, and he is just, I think he's a bit of a genius, and we've always wanted to work with each other, and just his presence. There are very few actors, particularly male actors of any of our generation, or who haven't worked it all out and who don't give a performance. And the thing that I can always count on with Ben is that we can just react to each other, and it's just there. It's really in the moment. Every take is different and alive. Toby is, I mean, he's playing such a messed up boy and he looks incredible. I mean, Ange Conti has really gone to town on his hair and his tats and his scabby, skanky, filthy demeanour and kind of need for attention. And he's lovely, and watching he and Eliza together playing this couple falling in love with each other. It's beautiful and sweet and really, everyone has really raised the bar high and brought it to the table. I think the four of us together are quite a believable bunch of oddballs. Well, Anna loves Miller intensely and is I think knows her daughter quite well, and is a musician, is like an artist, and her daughter is being, probably forced to do a lot of violin lessons, but clearly has the ability to be an artist as well. And Anna's still like, you've got to do the practice, she's got an element of perfectionism, pay attention to what you're doing, listen. Yes, you have to go and do all these things because life has to carry on as normal, and because of course you're going to get better, and you are then going to pass your exams. So there's this kind of, mother as organiser and runner of everyone's lives, who is the primary carer, who is an insomniac, she's on the alert for her child's health and welfare, and I think it's really hard for Anna to watch her child want to share their love with someone else other than her. I think that's really confronting. When Anna sees her daughter's frustration with her, she's trying in lots of ways to reconnect and make connections that will just be for them alone. And Miller keeps on sharing them with Moses, with Toby's character. And I think it's really hard for Anna to both accept that his presence in Miller's life is a healing force and a positive energy, as well as that she feels like there's not quite enough love to go around if Miller has to share it with anyone but her and Henry. One of the most beautiful scenes in it is the first time you meet Anna and Henry, and they are, you just think they're a psych patient and psychiatrist in a session, and it's a very odd session. They're going, what? He's really not interested. He's eating a sandwich, and she's talking about really boring stuff, and in amongst it all, you sort of find out that, in fact, they're married and that things are going to change next week, that things are changing right now, and that this might be the last time they have sex because things are about to change. And it's so kooky and weird and very funny and silly. Lots of really beautiful, odd, crazy, there's lots of craziness in it. And although essentially Anna and Henry are quite conservative characters, they're also quite liberal, and Anna is an artist and a musician, and Henry is a psychiatrist, so he knows a lot about a lot of different types of people. So they're kind of very open, as much as they're trying to shut everything out. They're open to the possibilities. Every character is on a very separate journey but all rubbing off on each other. I think also as things get revealed, the way that each person deals with other people's flaws is not the way that you expect. It's filled with kindness, about people being kind to each other, and I think that's quite unusual and also very moving, that when the shit hits the fan, people don't necessarily blow up and explode. Everyone knows what everyone else is going through. And so very peculiar behaviour is strangely deeply understood by the fact that each of us is going through something quite confronting. Shannon is super delightful and funny, and she's definitely enjoying the comedy of the situations, and she's really good at avoiding the sentimentality, I think. I hope that people will seize the moment and remember to be kind to each other and to themselves, and just go, wow, we are in an incredible, we have life, and to make the most of that in the kindest possible way.
Hey, I'm Ben Mendelsohn. I play Henry James Finlay in Babyteeth. Henry is Miller's father, and if you were looking for a way to explain him, he'd be like he's a psychiatrist, so, and in this context, he's like a medical mansplainer. He thinks he's benign, you know, he thinks he's doing the right thing and stuff. Not so sure. I'm not so sure. He definitely loves his wife and his kid, but yeah, whether or not he makes things easier or not with his medicining is that's debatable. I haven't been back to make a film in Australia in about 8 years, I think, maybe 9 years now. And I read Babyteeth, and I just thought it was beautiful. And I don't, that's not a word that comes to mind often when you finish reading something. For me, it's got the best Australian virtues on display. It's, you know, it's got a great love of difficult people, you know, people that, you know, have got some kinks or some, you know, they're not well-polished people, but there's a great love for them, and there's a great love for the unit of them. Really, the story's about Miller, and really the story's about Miller and Moses. Moses, who's played by Toby Wallace, is a young kind of, you know, middle-class drug addict. He's sort of trying to find his way to get cash and this and that and the other, bumps into Miller, and that's the sparks just fly. Miller's very young, Miller's 16. She's got a cancer that's in remission, but she just falls for this guy. And her parents are me, the psychiatrist, and her mama is a concert pianist played by the great Essie Davis. And so she brings this guy home. I mean, this guy's really, you know, this guy's looking for a bit of cash or a bit of, you know, cash or drugs or whatever. And he starts to, you know, she's nuts about him. And he finds himself drawn into her, you know. And the character of Miller, which is played by Eliza Scanlon, is a really beautiful character, and she's a really beautiful actress. Shannon Murphy is our director, and although this is her first feature, she's got a long history in theatre and television. She has a great love of actors, so much so that she married one of our greats, the great Dan Wiley. They have a baby together. Her sensibilities for this are really, yeah, they're really perfect and they're really delicate. So, I mean, this is kind of a beautifully black, you know, heartbreakingly beautiful kind of comedy. You know, that's how it is to me. You look, pulling off a romantic comedy, really, about a 16-year-old dying of cancer and her 24-year-old, 26-year-old, or 23-year-old, whatever age he is, junkie boyfriend. That's a high jump. And I reckon she's done it. I reckon she's done it. So Henry, being a psychiatrist, the medical mansplainer, has this beautiful, accomplished concert pianist wife who has issues. You know, she's got a temperament. It's a beautiful, strong, artistic temperament. They met, they fell in love, they had a baby. When they had a baby, it was harder for Anna to kind of work, you know, because of the connection and all that. So she had to make some huge life decisions. But, you know, Henry's approach to Anna is to basically, you know, manage her more difficult edges by, you know, here, take this, take the blue one, and then take 3 of the green ones, come see me in the evening. So, look, they're beautiful people that that get a couple of things wrong, you know. So the relationship between Henry and Miller is really that of two people that live close to a volcano, and they get a lot of what they need there, but it can also go off and burn you. It's one of the reasons, you know, like this is one of the reasons it sort of brings you to, you know, it brought me anyway, to sort of beautiful tears about it is these people really love each other. They really do. They're all very, very close. But they're idiots with each other. I mean, the grown-up one in the family is Miller. Miller is the most sort of, the one that has to kind of be the most grown-up. And that's a kind of an absurd situation. It's also a situation that happens in real life for a lot of people. So I think what Rita's been able to do is thread that in a way that highlights the absurdity and the frustration and the idiocy of that situation just really well. I just think people are going to have a ball watching it, and it's going to catch them, you know. Knock on wicker furniture, you know, it'll catch them.
My name's Eliza Scanlon and I'm playing Miller Finlay in Babyteeth. I think it was over a year ago that I had first heard about it, and the more digging I did, I found out it was a Belvoir play, and I'm a very big fan of Belvoir Street Theatre. And so, yeah, it was kind of like any other casting call that comes through, and shortly after I met with Shannon and to talk about the film, but it was only 6 months later that I auditioned for it. Some of the first conversations I had with Shannon as a director was really just about what we wanted the film to be, because it can be a lot of different things, and I think it could have easily been about cancer, and that could have been the only theme that permeated the film, but we wanted to make it more than that. We wanted to make it, I guess, a study of, not a study, but more just an exploration of these characters who really veer away from what their stereotypes kind of demand them to be. We have a cancer patient, we have a drug dealer, a psychiatrist, and an overbearing mother, and I think, like I said before, it's really easy to fall into those stereotypes, and to make it something more real, we needed to make it odd and peculiar, and we needed to bring out the weirdness in these characters and the intricacies of their relationships. Being a 15-year-old at a Catholic girls' private school, and there was a lot about Miller that I could relate to in terms of, I guess, just being fearful of growing up, being scared of initially expressing yourself in a way that feels true to you, and yeah, just talking about how she progresses as a character, and making it a realistic progression, especially dealing with cancer. And I think we both agreed upon the fact that, you know, she is like any other teenager, but she has this burden weighing down on her that really no person that age should have to deal with. And I think that really intensifies her experience growing up and growing into a woman. And it was really fun just collaborating with her and figuring out how we could make her someone that's fiery and creative in the most interesting way, and in a way that's unique to me as a person. Shannon and I really wanted to make sure that she could grow into this woman, but also maintain a unique quality to her that stays true to the, I guess, pure version of herself that we see at the beginning of the film. Well, we meet Miller at the train station. She is on her way to get her hair shaved off because she's getting chemo the next day. And there's a lot of things running through her head at that moment. She's going through a panic attack, and she's feeling detached from her life and her friends, and feeling, quite frankly, very alone, until she, by chance, literally bumps into Moses, who is played by Toby Wallace. She's finding an escape, and that escape at that point is Moses. And that's kind of the beginning of their relationship, and they somehow keep falling back into each other's lives. Miller and Moses' relationship is quite unique. Miller has conditioned herself to be very detached from her friends, and especially her friends from school, because it's less of an emotional burden. And I think Moses is just a person that doesn't place that pressure on her to be a certain person, or to provide something for him. And I think the same goes for Moses. I think they both get what they want out of each other in the beginning, and it's kind of like a trade-off. But the more and more they hang out, I think that with that sense of detachment, they can be really honest with one another and communicate with one another in a way that they can't usually. Toby is an amazing person, just in real life. He's a beautiful boy, really funny, charismatic, and goofy. And I think that's a really interesting thing to bring into a role of a drug dealer, because he's not the most slick drug dealer, you could say, not the most effective drug dealer, and yeah, he brings the comedy to what would otherwise be a very dark role. Miller's relationship with her parents is, at this point in the film, in her life, quite strained. So she's feeling very much suffocated and entrapped by her parents. And I think going through puberty and having cancer is a very difficult combination, because all you want to do at that point is to break free and rebel and do things that any normal teenager should be able to do. And so I guess she has a strained relationship with her mother. She's quite overbearing, and her mother can only really be happy when Miller is wanting her attention and is gaining happiness through her. So when Moses comes into her life and she can see that it's making Miller happy, it becomes a real burden for Anna. And on the other hand, we have Henry, played by Ben Mendelsohn, who is kind, I guess you could say that Miller is on the dad's side. They have this secret language with one another through looks and side glances, and they kind of control Anna through that, and try and manage her through that. But at the same time, I think once she finds a life outside of her parents, the dynamic changes, and I think it's a really interesting thing growing up, well, especially at my age. When you meet people outside of your family, it feels like your world gets bigger and you learn to let more people in. I think that's a really hard thing for her parents to process, because they know that perhaps she doesn't have her whole life to live, so she doesn't have a lot of time left to give her love. And yeah, it's a beautiful but very complicated dynamic. Working with Ben Mendelsohn has been one of the greatest experiences, and I feel so lucky to be here in Australia working with, you know, my idols, people that I've looked up to for a really long time, people that my parents have looked up to for a really long time. And Ben just has this lovely energy on set that can put anyone in a good mood. And at the same time, he really knows when to pull back, and I think he's a very generous actor. He always makes sure that us younger actors feel like we're getting what we need, and he was always there to talk. And I think, you know, he has a daughter, and playing his daughter in this film, I think a lot of that came through, and I felt very cared for by him. And he's just, you know, he's a powerhouse. He's incredible. Working with Essie was lovely. She is a gorgeous human being, and I remember the day I met her and just seeing how down to earth and gentle and kind she was, I don't know, you never know what to expect when you meet your idols. But I guess, you know, they exceeded my expectations, and they're very normal people. And Essie's just a very kind woman. I'm a twin, and she has 2 young girl twins, and it was just a nice thing to, I guess, connect with her. And she's a very hard worker. I think she knows how to put me in the right mindset really well. Like, I don't know, it's nice to have Ben and Essie on the set, because you can really easily just follow their lead, and they set the atmosphere for the whole set. Babyteeth is very much a bittersweet comedy, and while it explores cancer and how it affects young people, I don't think it is about that. I think it's about much more than that. And it becomes cancer becomes, in a way, the obstacle. It kind of becomes a comedic element to Miller's life in this film, because everything that she experiences, it in some way hinders her experience or makes it a bit odd and awkward. And it's really interesting to see a young girl navigate puberty and navigate the beginnings of liking a boy, while she's dealing with such a serious illness. She's figuring out how to talk to boys still, and she doesn't quite know how to flirt with them, and she hates her parents right now because they're on her back. She doesn't want to play the violin anymore because she wants to start living. And I think it makes it even more peculiar that the person she falls in love with is a drug dealer. She's just craving excitement in her life, and in that way, I think the film just becomes this explosion and a celebration of life. And while it does explore how families cope with such a serious illness, and you know how people self-medicate in different ways, I think it's really refreshing to see these characters. They're all messed up in some way. They all have something to fix about them or something to learn. And the great thing is we see them learning together and learning through each other in the most unlikely way. Yeah, I think it's going to be really special. Well, yes, the decision to shave my head for the film wasn't necessarily my decision to begin with. It was a requirement of the role, which is always a bit scary. I mean, the shortest my hair has been is like that. But I knew that, you know, this was a really special film, and if I did have the role, I would do it. And I don't think I would have had permission to tell this story if I didn't shave my head. I think it's a very emotionally intense part of the chemo process. Even going out in public with a bald head is quite a confronting experience. I remember the first day going out, I'd gotten it shaved that afternoon, so it was quite, and it's below a 0, so it was quite close to my head, and you know, if I were to go out, people would assume. And it's really interesting, either people will look at you for a bit longer than usual, or you'll get onto a bus and no one will look at you. They will actively turn away from you. And I found it to be the most isolating thing for you know, people not being able to bear to look at me, because I guess they didn't want to offend me. Initially getting my head shaved, I was kind of trying to ignore the emotional experience of it, but it was quite confronting, and I'm really glad that I did it because it made this story feel a lot more real to me. There's a lot of hope in this film, and beyond her illness, I think this film is about growing up and learning how to let go, especially letting go of guilt. I think it's a really hard thing for parents to let go of their children, even without such a serious illness playing a huge part in their lives. I think anyone can relate to this film, and what I'd hope is that people just come out with a sense of hope, and you know, and understand that you can find the light in any situation, and we should celebrate life rather than count the days. And I think Miller as a character really emulates that. Crazy, explosive, and goofy.
So my name is Toby Wallace and I play Moses. I got sent through the script from my agent and read it for the first time, and it's written so well that you're kind of enthralled in the characters right from the first page. It's like the entrance of you like the meeting of Moses and Miller at the beginning is like, oh my god, I can totally see where this is going. But it was kind of it's just such incredible writing. I think that's why we've got such incredible people working on it as well. It's just because the writing is so strong and the characters are so strong. So working with Shannon, the director, is and has been pretty bloody wonderful. She's so supportive in who she is as a person and as an artist, and she's just very good at crafting and guiding your performance. She's very open to new choices and new interpretations, and you'll quite often go into a scene and she'll come up and just tell you to forget what you did and do it a different way, which I love. That's my favorite type of directing, because you always find something new in it, and not to get locked onto doing it the right way. But yeah, it's been fantastic working with her, yeah. When you first meet Moses, Moses's life is a contradiction, and he is a contradiction himself. He's having the best time in the world and also having the worst time in the world. A little emotionally full and emotionally empty at the same time. He's looking for love and he doesn't have any of it. He's looking for a family that he doesn't have, and for the love that he eventually gets, I guess. But yeah, I think you first meet Moses when he's in, I guess, a search for something new, and a change in his life. It's such a good love story. Like, this film is such a good love story because I think it draws a picture of youth, the difficulties of love. But the love story between Moses and Miller is, I found it so powerful because it's like this accidental but stars in their eyes, but on the cusp of adulthood love story where, you know, this guy has to almost learn how to be there for her and open up to her completely, and not deflect and face all the problems that he has for her, because she, you know, quite possibly doesn't have that much time left. In the same way, this young girl is like spiritually so awake right now, and just how much she wants to like embrace life and experience life. And so it's a little bit like they're really quite in love, but the pressure's on for them to make it work quickly. It's really beautiful. Eliza is, who plays Miller. It's really easy to act opposite someone who is just like completely free and playful in what they're doing, and very just present with you constantly, always trying new things. She doesn't seem to have any inhibitions or fears about making risky choices as well, you know. And she's kind of one of those people that's good at everything. Like, Eliza can play piano, and she bought a guitar like 2 weeks ago, and she really knows how to play guitar like better than me. So it's frightening. But she's gorgeous. She's absolutely killing it. Moses' relationship with Miller's parents, Henry and Anna, I guess begins when Miller first has Moses over for dinner, which is this hilarious and awkward scene where this guy who kind of looks like this, face tats and the whole bit, and obviously kind of a street kid, is sitting there at dinner, and they obviously haven't known each other for very long, and so instantly I think they're very intimidated by the possibility of what he brings to the table. He's intimidated by them because of, I guess, he's never had a proper family. Over the course of the story, obviously, they all have to maneuver and figure out the dynamic between them to make the best situation possible for Miller as she navigates her illness. Over the course of the film, I found it's unbelievably sweet. Like, as the story goes on, Anna shows these little ways of caring for Moses that are like really, really strong and filled with love. Henry has this almost like, I found with the way that we worked with Ben, it ended up almost being like I felt like an adopted son or something to that character, and I think it goes down that road quite a lot, and slowly and surely Moses and Henry and Anna do become kind of like a family all on their own. Working with Ben is like the best thing ever. He's one of my favourite actors, as I'm sure he is to many people. Ben has so much energy in who he is. He'll literally be like all different directions and non-stop talking, jokes, banter constantly. And then as soon as action's called, he's like really still and right with you and so present. But he also has this thing of, you know, you might be, we had this dinner scene in the film where, you know, dinner scenes are a nightmare to film because they take all day and they're like, you know, go for 7 hours and you're getting all these different angles, and slowly and surely the energy starts to melt out of the scene. But Ben was so generous in the way that he'd pick up the energy again. Remember, they were turning around on me on my close-up and I was kind of a bit weary, and he came in, he has these speakers that he walks around with constantly, and he was like, just pick a song, give me a song, and you give him a song and then he'll fire you up and you'll dance around for a while, and then they call action, you'll sit down with him and he's right there with you again. So he's like a tremendously like giving actor. He's got a huge heart and just understands writing, and this story especially as well, just very well, and he's just like, he's incredibly clever and intelligent as well, very succinct. But I had a great time working with him. Essie Davies is a force of nature and someone to be reckoned with. I said to her the other day, we came out of a scene, it was quite a simple scene. I was lying on the couch in the middle of the night and she comes in and she thinks she hears something, and we kind of whisper a bit of dialogue to one another. And just like through the scene, I was like, it was so, Essie is very good at making things quite simple, but doing things with a lot of, I don't know, like she makes a choice and she just commits to it. And I remember coming out of that and just going like, oh my God, she's so vulnerable, and so I just couldn't keep my eyes off her. And I told her afterwards, I was like, everything you do, I'm kind of in awe of a little bit. I think the spirit of Moses is really lies within his, like, the life that he brings to all these characters, like, and the life that he brings into the family, I guess. And you know, like there was a thing in rehearsals I was talking about the ways in which he shows Miller like how to fully experience life again and have fun in who she is, and kind of bring out, you know, like that thing deep down that she's been holding back for a lot of her life. Yeah, Moses very good at deflecting, very good at leading questions away from things that he doesn't want to talk about, and using kind of humor and comedy as a way of avoiding questions. As a result, he becomes quite a hilarious character, I think, and a lively one, and a charismatic one, I guess. And I think he, you know, he uses his charisma and uses that as a way of getting what he wants, or to continue the kind of floaty, you know, misled traveller life that he's been living for the amount of time that he has. For Moses, we went with kind of the lone wolf idea. You got the wolf there, and then Le Loup means the wolf in French. We kind of went down that road a little bit. I didn't even realize the look was going to be that intense, but as we were building through the process, it just became something. He's a very strong character in who he is, and yet very vulnerable. So it's like it got back into the idea of like contradictions, and that he is a contradiction. He's like looks terrifying, I guess, the first time you see him, but if you get to know Moses, he's kind of like a poetic, you know, vulnerable kid who's kind of just looking for some purpose. I feel like it's going to be pretty damn heartbreaking, but very uplifting at the same time. I think it is a very like engrossing story in that way, and just very, it's just like going to touch some hearts, I feel. Like it's just such a beautiful love story. And what seems to be a parental story as well. Like I found there were some scenes with Essie and Ben that were very heartbreaking, and I can't really pretend to be able to comprehend what, you know, a parent's love for their kid feels like, or to know what that is, but I feel like I'm a little closer to comprehending what it is after those scenes, if that makes sense.